But here's the thing. In that respect, do you consider that cinema?
Right now, yes.
What?
Welcome to the Comment Lounge, a place where we discuss all things art, photography, and cinema. We are your hosts, Andy, Paul, and me, Joshua. We shoot and edit photos and videos all day and thought, why not bring our daily chats to you? In today's episode, we'll be debating on what we see the differences are between a regular movie and a cinematic film. We'll then examine if comedy has a place under the title of cinema, or are they just movies? And speaking of cinema, our award show's a good indicator of what are the best films. After all that, we'll end the episode with a couple lightning round questions. But without further delay,
Pop some popcorn, strap in, join us on this hero's journey.
What do you see as the difference between a movie and like cinema or a film? What's the film and movie? What's the difference?
So I've been thinking about that, and when we have conversations all the time where we're trying to classify things. And so what you do is you come up with the criteria, and we agree on the criteria, and then we apply things to that criteria. So when it comes to cinema versus a flick, the tough thing is it's much like pornography. You know it when you see it, right? So if something's cinema, I've been trying to come up with the criteria that it has to hit, 2 or 3 categorical rules to then be cinema or a movie.
Okay.
But instead of saying, it's got to have cinematography, it's got to have things like that, I've been looking at, there's the intent. What's the director's intent or the studio's intent? And what's the actual execution? Because we've seen movies where they had a great idea and the execution prevented it from being a cinema.
Right.
But that doesn't solve the problem. So I really want to kind of get your viewpoints on what's the criteria? Can we, by the end of this conversation, can we agree on criteria where you could apply any movie and say, well, it's cinema?
Well, wait a second. These things. Okay. Well,
Battlefield Earth.
Right.
If the director accomplished everything that he was going for, would you consider Battlefield Earth cinema if it meets those criteria?
So there's other things that need to meet those criteria, possibly critical reaction and audience reaction to bring it up to that level.
I want to talk about that.
I don't know about audience reaction though.
Here's what I'm going to say.
Lighthouse.
Good point, actually.
Here's what I'm going to say. Let's go ahead and have a counter at the bottom of the screen for every single time I mention a future podcast. We are going to have a future podcast about critical reception. I did think about the audience reaction. And as a communicator, as a filmmaker, it's your responsibility, right? For what the entire reason to make something is for an audience, right? You're not just making it for yourself, right?
Well,
I think we're going to dive a little deeper into that when we start talking about photography, though, because if you're making it just for other people.
Well, no, not just for other people. You're not making it just for yourself. If you're putting it out into the world, I stand behind that. If an audience loves it or hates it, you are responsible. However, we were talking about Showgirls, right? Where 20 years ago, almost nobody liked it. And now that time has gone by, people have, but nothing about that movie has changed.
But here's the thing. In that respect, do you consider that cinema?
Right now, yes.
What?
Yeah.
What, Showgirls?
Showgirls, you guys consider that cinema?
I think so.
Okay, Starship Troopers. I would consider that cinema.
We're kind of getting off topic. Let's why don't you? Well, let's listen to Paul. What do you say? What are your criteria to determine between a flick and a film?
So here's the thing. I think that with cinema, I think there actually is to your point, there could be a criteria of longevity. As it grows over the years, people do start appreciating it more and more for what it is. And in that case, maybe Showgirls, but man, I don't know.
But let's not.
All right, not concentrate on one. Okay,
individuals.
Yeah, let's talk about
I think
what makes you go this is a film and this is it's a cool movie.
I think all the different levels of the production, whether it's the cinematography, costume, everything like that, everything along those lines, is bumped up to a certain level where people are like, that's just not, like, for instance, if you're watching something and you're like, that's not like an average shot, that actually has a lot of beauty to it, like The Lighthouse.
Or Showgirls.
So you're basically, it sounds like you're saying
quality.
Kind of what you were saying, not just quality, but specific intention with every element
Yes.
almost at every single second.
Yes, I think that is if the director is really focusing and bringing his vision with every single element and raising that to a certain level, most people and critics will sit there and say that has transcended a regular movie, and now it can be considered.
So is it just quality? Is there more?
What do you think? Well, what do you think?
Because I'm going to counter with.
Okay, counter with then.
I'm going to counter with Back to the Future. Every single aspect of Back to the Future was the tops. But do we consider Back to the Future cinema or a blockbuster?
Actually, it's funny because I don't. It's a great movie. It's a phenomenal movie.
It's one of my favorites. But when we're talking about cinema, I don't think
you don't lump it in that category.
Put it in there.
Yeah.
However, when you look at what went into the making of Back to the Future, every single thing was paid attention to. That's where I'm thinking quality can't be the only criteria, because there's certain movies that there's nothing wrong with.
So what is that X factor?
So here,
that's what we're trying to.
Yeah. So for me, if the credits start rolling, and I just sit there and it's like, wow, like I don't know what to say right now.
Right.
Like I don't know how to talk about it at that moment. That I need some time between the end of the movie and discussing. Right. Like if it's a fun film, it's like, oh, you walk out of the theater, oh, that one thing was great, and wasn't it cool when that big explosion happened, or that joke was really funny. But when it's like, for me, when it's a film, when it's cinema, it's like I'm gonna need a little bit of time to digest and like be able to talk about.
So it's that personal deep dive into it. And I think that other audience members, and I do agree with you there, because I go back to when I first saw Barton Fink, for instance. I mean, I left the movie and I kept on thinking about it, and that could be kind of considered cinema nowadays. At least I think so.
Right.
So it goes a little bit deeper than the regular, film.
So
movie.
To put a small note on it, my criteria for is it a good movie, period, is do I want to watch it again?
Right.
Ever. That's it, right?
That's fine.
First initial thing, I want to watch it again. So you can have a dumb, explosion-laden flick, and I want to watch it again. It's a good movie.
See,
but that's not cinema.
Right. But I don't quite take it to the same level with you, because like Forrest Gump, it's a great movie, but I never want to see it again.
Right. So to you,
so it's not just that.
To you, though, you wouldn't put that in your list of great movies.
Or cinema.
I would put it with cinema.
Forrest Gump.
Yeah, not just a movie, but cinema. Even though I have no interest in watching it again, but the way that it, like when it finished, like again, I needed time to digest and didn't really want to talk about it. But at the end, it's like I won't be able to recapture that experience again. So if I watch it again, it's like, it's okay.
Let me grab this connector that Robert Zemeckis did Back to the Future.
Right.
He did Forrest Gump. And we're kind of feeling like, without our criteria, Back to the Future is an incredible movie, but it's not cinema. Forrest Gump, Oscar winner, is cinema, but it's Robert Zemeckis. And everything he does is going to be at a certain level. And sometimes he's got failures, sometimes he's got incredible successes. So it's not the director. It's not his intent. It's not his quality that makes something cinema or not.
No, it's not just one thing. It's
there's a lot of different things.
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
So I was looking at we said what the intent is. Does it have to ask a question, or what is it saying? Right? Like cinema says something, right?
Yes.
Now every movie you could come up with what it's saying, but the closest I can get now to a separation between cinema and art is, what is it that you're saying? Are you saying, what happens if you go back in time and meet your dad? Would you guys be friends? Right? That was just basic question. Forrest Gump was, let's show you a whole swatch of American history through the eyes of one person that just kind of bumbles through it. That's not just a common question. That is, I think, what makes it cinema, was the intent and what it's saying. So to me, the closest I can get to drawing a line, see, I missed the mic that time, drawing a line, is that it's in what the director is saying.
Right. Does it also have to do with the impact on culture that the movie has? Or the impact on the medium itself?
I'm going to say this.
No, okay.
I'm going to say good cinema does have an impact, but it's not required.
That's
okay.
That's a good point.
I like that, because
that's a really good. I like
because
that.
There's movies that we'll talk about that most of the world won't know exist, but it's high-end cinema.
Right.
If the message is there, if the story is impactful,
okay,
it's amazing.
Yeah.
but the production quality is
Lame.
less than because it's independent. It doesn't
Right.
have the budget, but everything else about it, except for the production quality, is just like leaves you going, wow, they were onto something.
Right.
Is that cinema or is that just
Reservoir Dogs had they didn't even have costumes. They wore their own clothes. They shot where they could with shoestring permits and
but they had
lenses.
A-list people in it though.
Well, Harvey Keitel.
Tim Roth.
Was Tim Roth A-list at that time?
He was
Or did he become A-list because of? And like Steve Buscemi was great at indie flicks, right?
Yeah.
This was pre-Fargo, right? This was so if you want to talk about quality, Tarantino did the best with what he had. So I'm not going to say it's the budget because we've seen low, and then there's other, what was the budget other than the actors? But like, what was the budget on Glengarry Glen Ross? The budget all went to the actors, right? But
It went to the actors, yes.
Sets,
yeah.
right?
It's a play
There's
and
no
on-
special
on
effects.
celluloid.
Right.
It's
So-
nothing but dialogue.
So as far as budget and production value goes, I don't think that's a hard criteria.
Well, I'm not talking
that-
like
that
budget, I'm
limits it.
just mainly quality. Like, I think we can all agree that Neil Breen will never have a cinema level
Right.
No, well,
product, right?
Right. Or
But-
the room. Right.
Or the room. But thinking of something like that level of production value, but with an actual story and plot,
Bad taste. Do we consider bad taste to be cinema?
I do not.
I consider it.
A good start. I mean, compare that to Lord of the Rings, which actually Lord of the Rings could be maybe considered cinema.
I am not a huge Lord of the Rings fan, as I love Star Wars and I love Back to the Future, but I would put Lord of the Rings, Back to the Future, and Star Wars in a category. And if Back to the Future is not cinema, then I think Lord of the Rings is not cinema.
I disagree with you totally.
All right.
I don't know how I feel about it. It was amazing. Everything was very intentional.
Right.
And the
Right.
production values were beyond.
So what is he saying? What's the director saying? If
But I don't-
back to the message,
I don't know if it's
does the director have a message, or is he
just
putting
because it's
on
pretty doesn't
screen
make it
something that
cinema.
he likes, right?
I don't know, man.
So I'm going to put another check mark in it's got to be what are they saying that determines if something is cinema. And for me, my personal opinion is the director Peter Jackson pulled off what he wanted to do,
Okay.
but the intent was not groundbreaking high cinema. It was a quality interpretation of
A book.
Of a book.
Okay. So Tarantino, though, went the extra distance with a lot of his, techniques to really bring it above and beyond. The Fall, I agree with you. Same way. Very pretty movie, great story, and it made you think afterwards.
It made you think because it's not just the story within a story, but I think one of the things maybe that I consider for cinema is that you're not just watching action take place. You're enveloped into that world.
and interpreting it from your own perspective.
And well, not just that, but like for The Fall, you're not interpreting anything from your perspective.
It's-
most of that movie, you're interpreting it through that like 9-year-old
Girls, yeah.
Right.
listening to a story being told to her. We're brought into her world, into her mind,
Right.
and experiencing what she's experiencing when she's experiencing it, not just observing what's happening.
And that was the director's intent.
Yeah.
And because that's what they want to do, not just tell the story of a girl listening to a story.
Right.
They had the intent. And so Tarantino had the intent and
And I will say this, looking back on it, I will say that after each of the Lord of the Rings movies, I did say that was really, really good, but I didn't dwell on it.
Right.
and so
there you
maybe
go.
That's why. So I agree that I
But
don't
Lawrence of
think-
Arabia, when I watched it, what I was thinking was David Lean directed, and I was thinking about the dialogue, thinking about especially the cinematography and how, in the editing, I mean, that one which goes to the desert scene where he blows out the match.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, that it transcends everything.
Yeah.
So that's what it is. Does the movie transcend what you normally
Does
think?
it transcend? Does it pull you in again to make you turn you from an observer to a participant? And maybe that's an element. Because you do that with Hateful Eight.
Right.
You
But
do that with Lawrence.
that's
You do that with
not
The Fall.
The criteria, though, to me, there is the level of I'm witnessing something and I'm being drawn in, and I think cinema does both. So to me, that's not
Okay.
the deciding factor.
That's
Well, no,
actually
not
good, yeah.
I mean, there's no deciding.
Right.
But you don't consider that on the list of things
Right.
that
we can't just say the director intended to make cinema, because sometimes they have their head so far up their own ass
Yes.
that they don't have the reflection to keep it cinema. So they had the goal of making it cinema, and in a future podcast, we're going to talk about directors and their career.
So let's shift gears.
All right.
Okay, shift
Talking
gears.
about cinema. We're talking about like all these dramatic, heavy things.
Yes.
Does comedy have a place in cinema?
Yes.
Yes.
And not just funny films.
Right. So, okay, Idiocracy. I love talking about Idiocracy.
But is Idiocracy cinema? I mean, since we're having that conversation.
See, if we had criteria, then we would say yes or no. But so what we have so far, the intent is to have a commentary on society and present it in a funny way that you haven't thought of before. And to me, Idiocracy is cinema because of the intent. The intent wasn't like, hey, wouldn't it be funny if the dumbest, or if the future is so stupid that a medium intelligence man is like boss, right? Like,
Right. Yep.
Yeah. Mike Judge had an essay. He wanted to say, this is kind of, and he claims on paper in interviews that he wasn't trying to wag a finger at society saying you're being dumb. This is what's going to happen.
That's
But
exactly what it was.
That's what it was.
Right.
And so, like I said, he does this in interviews, but he had a fear of the way he saw things going and wanted to extrapolate it by 500 years. And he wanted to make an essay that criticizes what we're doing now, where we're headed, but he made it funny. And so it's a comedy. You'd put it on the comedy shelf if there were still video stores, but it's cinema.
I don't know. I don't consider Idiocracy to necessarily be cinema.
What about Blazing Saddles?
That's getting closer because of the cultural impact that Blazing, or Young Frankenstein. If we go back to Mel Brooks.
I
mean,
I love both movies. If I'm looking at it as at a pure visual aspect, then Young Frankenstein would be cinema over Blazing Saddles.
Right. I have a hard
Blazing
time saying
Saddles says more things.
It does say more things. Yeah,
It says so many things.
it does.
So it's kind of tough. But it's also a difficult movie to talk about
Right.
in modern.
Yeah,
without asterisks and well, hear me out here, not to be racist, but you gotta set the stage where we can just talk about.
So does that help put it into a cinema column in that it's something that spurs conversations and debates well beyond the lights in the theater coming up?
I'm going to go say yes. I'm going to say yes.
So
It does.
So at that point, Blazing Saddles would definitely be cinema.
Yes.
And Idiocracy would lean towards that.
The old way of thinking is that if it's comedy, you went the easy route, right? You told a joke, you had somebody fall down. I think the perception is comedy would take less effort. I don't agree with that.
No, I think
good comedy has a lot.
I think
of effort.
anybody will tell you that comedy is harder to do than
Right. But if you want to talk about the Academy, the reason why they dismiss comedies is because they don't think that it was as hard to do. And it's not because it's easy. It's disposable. Now, we've seen and mentioned lots of comedies that are far from easy or disposable.
True.
That are better than Oscar-winning Best Pictures, right? I think the world would be a better place if people recognize and lifted comedies as high as other pieces like Greasy Strangler.
Okay, but I don't know. There's other comedies I would consider to be more cinema than Greasy Strangler for sure.
Yeah, that's not up for debate.
Yeah.
Are there other reasons why comedy is disregarded other than a false dismissal of it?
I think a lot of times with great cinema, I mean, it's other people telling you that, oh, this is great cinema. And I think a lot of times comedy's just kind of shuffled off because it doesn't engage a lot of emotions other than humor. Whereas a lot of cinema, you got all sorts of things going on. You know, you feel sad, you feel overjoyed, you do feel humor and stuff like that. Whereas comedies, it's just kind of like, oh, you're just laughing,
right?
You know.
And there's a lot of comedies that could easily be dismissed.
Oh yeah,
but
absolutely.
Comedies in general, your point is, comedies are dismissed too much.
Yeah.
Right. I think it's changing a little bit, but not the norm. Right. It's not currently the norm.
I think the approach to comedies has changed over the lifetime of film in Hollywood. Because even when you had like slapstick comedy, Three Stooges, Laurel and Hardy.
Okay.
Buster Keaton.
Okay. So
He was physical humor, but I wouldn't say slapstick.
Okay. So slapstick that there's somebody getting hurt.
Somebody getting hurt, whereas
physical comedy is like almost falling off a building, but not.
right, exactly.
Okay.
That's more Buster
So I was
Keaton,
thinking of the house falling.
Charlie Chaplin, but
Right.
but he's like standing right there, and it goes
Right.
around him.
And it wasn't the
or
violence. It
or
was
Harold
Exactly.
Harold Lloyd on top
Harold
of the
Lloyd.
clock. Now,
Yes.
him, once again, here's the thing. Harold Lloyd hanging onto the clock is such an iconic image. People consider that cinema.
Well, Charlie Chaplin, like
right.
him in
Going-
the gears
modern times,
and everything
yeah.
else. Modern times, great dictator.
Yeah.
You know, these were, for lack of a better term, high level comedy
Right.
because you weren't relying on lowest common denominator of slapstick
Right.
Good point.
Which
Puerile content.
or puerile content. So I think over time, comedy, there became a bigger divide between, comedy is the stuff for like kids and check your brain at the door. And
Right.
we're not saying anything. We're just having fun to make you laugh.
Right.
And I think that got leaned into way too much. And so when you had people like Mel Brooks and others try to pull it back and be like, no, here we are trying to say something, it was getting lost in translation. But to your point, I think the course is being corrected a little bit.
Right.
And we're starting to see a little more of that where we can have some humor in comedy, but it's still an impactful piece.
And so when we were discussing the topics of this show, I know we wanted to talk about why is comedy disregarded, but I also thought we want to look at the importance of comedy, right? And so movies like Blazing Saddles had a significant impact. You know, I feel like back in 74?
It was 73,
73, 74?
Yeah.
Racism existed, obviously.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But it was racism in general. Overt racism out in public was out of style.
It was.
But it wasn't
yes.
gone. Blazing Saddles came around and said, there's still racism. Even maybe you're not talking about it in public. You're talking about it in your private house, in your parties, and not mixed company. And it's stupid. It's got to end, right? Like he was definitely condemning.
But what I love is the way he did it.
Oh, yeah.
Was that the people that had those stupid thoughts
Right.
would watch it and be like, ha ha ha, and not realize that they're the ones being made fun of.
And that's-
they think the movie's making fun of these cultures and things like that. When
But
in reality, it's making fun of those stupid racists.
Exactly.
And I think that was brilliant because they didn't realize it.
Right, because if it wasn't a comedy, if you just made a movie where you said racism is bad, it wouldn't be effective because the racist people
Would be like, I'm not going to watch it.
wouldn't
I don't care.
digest that at all.
Exactly.
So comedy has a place for breaking barriers and kind of sneaking in on you and delivering messages, but sugarcoating it maybe, or that might not be the best word, but putting something around it to kind of get it past your initial defenses.
And then you start thinking about it more and more, and it becomes more evident that this is trying to
So
teach.
what are some modern comedies, modern being the last 20 years,
Right.
that we think kind of go from just being a funny movie to a
Piece of cinema?
full comedic?
Idiocracy.
I don't agree with Idiocracy still, but I'm going to put one out there that makes you think. I'm going to go out with Lebowski because you can revisit Lebowski time and time again and get so much out of it.
No, I'm not disagreeing with that, but what is Lebowski saying? Like, I wouldn't link that with Blazing Saddles. I think there's a cultural anything.
Yeah,
to
I don't
it.
know if I would put
I think it's just a funny.
No, but I'm not saying just like that it has to be specifically cultural as ardent as Blazing Saddles was, but something that we can look at and go, that should have gotten an Oscar for Best Picture.
Okay, that's different.
Comedy, then.
Yes.
Okay.
What's a discarded comedy that could be considered for an Oscar, though? I mean,
No, I'm not prepared with that one.
Well, I think that's the point,
funny
though.
movies
in
that I love.
There's a course correction in place, but we're not there yet
No, yeah.
because we don't have comedies that we would consider Oscar worthy for Best Picture.
Okay.
And is that a problem? I think so.
It would need to be a really damn good comedy.
I know,
To
but
Paul's point, it has to have a lot of beats, not just funny, right?
right. I know, but it's like let's look at the movies that get Best Picture, and especially recently, it seems like we're starting to get more independent movies going up there as a nominee, because studios will put money into artistic and heavily dramatic, because knowing that, oh, well, there's a chance that we could be nominated for this because it's World War II, right? Or because it's poverty this, or it's beating you over the head heavy-handed on a social statement wrapped in this pretty wrapper, but they're not doing that with comedy.
Okay, I got one. Jojo Rabbit. Did that win anything?
It did not, I don't think.
But that's a comedy in the last couple of years that is definitely transcendent, and it's definitely a comedy, right? It's not something that's funny. It is a comedy, right?
Well, I mean,
I think
it is kind of
Dark comedy, high concept. It won Best Adapted Screenplay.
See, and
it was nominated for Best Picture.
So it was nominated for Best Picture, didn't win.
Nominated for Best Performance by an Actress, nominated for Costume Design, Production Design, Film Editing. It won Best Screenplay for BAFTA, nominated for Best Award.
I was going to say,
so does that show progress? That a movie like Jojo Rabbit, 15 years ago would have been disregarded, and now
but it goes back to what I was saying. It's World War II. You do anything where it's World War II, Hitler-y stuff, it's going to make people go, oh, that's deep. Not to take anything away from JoJo, but show me a movie that has gotten this kind of attention that doesn't deal with
what
those
Well, 1942. That was a huge flop. I've never seen it.
It's so good.
It's so good.
It's so good.
Okay.
Yeah,
But it was a
Spielberg's
huge flop, though.
It was a huge flop. It is such a great movie.
The critics and studios and
I got one for you.
all right.
I got a comedy. It actually won the Golden Globe this year, and you guys haven't seen it yet. Poor Things is actually considered to be a comedy. And yet, if you watch the movie, I will definitely say it's cinema.
Okay. From the trailers, it looks like cinema.
Oh, it's pretty on the eyes. Right?
Let's see. But it's also nominated for
Best
all
Picture.
these things.
No, not Best Picture.
Yeah, Best
Oh,
Picture of the Year.
Oh, it's nominated for Best Picture.
It's nominated for makeup, hairstyling. It's nominated for
Best Picture.
original score,
Best
picture, directing, actress, actor, screenplay, cinematography, film editing, production design, costume design.
So if we were saying that comedies are disregarded, they're not.
So
Right? It shows the tides have turned.
there's a
Yeah, let's say
I don't know.
It's a dark comedy.
Jojo Rabbit, dark comedy. Poor Things, dark comedy. So it's not. It's got to have.
There's got to be.
It looks like it's got to be a comedy. It's got to be a drama with comedic elements.
You know what?
Versus a comedy with dramatic elements.
It's something that's not
I think
silly.
that's the issue.
Yeah, it's not. It's something that's not. Once again, it goes back to silly slapstick.
For a comedy to be regarded, it can't just be a comedy. It has to have.
No, I'm
comedy.
saying that what I would like to see is that for a comedy to be regarded as cinema, it should be a comedy with maybe some dramatic elements, but it's at its purity a comedy versus a drama that's got a lot of comedy to it, which is really what a dark comedy is.
And that is Poor Things.
Is it because of, which leads us to our next, because I think none of these are going to come up with any answer.
No,
Right.
not at all.
Puerile content, Andy's favorites.
I do. I'm not gonna say I'm obsessed with puerile content.
Yes, you are.
I'm obsessed
It's
with
okay.
people with.
It's his number 2
This is
obsession.
number 2. But let me show you my number 1.
Oh, God.
So we talk about cinema, we talk about comedy, and aside from cinema, there's highbrow and lowbrow, right? And puerile content, to be clear, is all the things like potty humor, people throwing up, farts, periods, all that's body functions. Puerile in that it's childish, it's very easy on a certain level. There's no, it's an easy laugh because we can all relate to it, right? So typically, if a movie is full of puerile content, it's considered not cinema or not highly regarded. But then we get Boogie Nights, which is about pornography, and it has the rubber dong. If it didn't have those things, it wouldn't have been a good movie, right? You couldn't have a movie about porn and show no porn, right?
Yeah.
So puerile content does not automatically push you out. And so we like talking about Fargo season 3 has puerile content almost like they made sure to put something in every episode just to even touch on it so you didn't forget. And we don't disagree that, showing David Thewlis, am I saying his name right?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Seeing him vomit was absolutely part of our exposure to that character. And the things characters did and things people talked about, it was absolutely integral to the story. But is there a point where you've gone too far and it cannot exist as highbrow? Like, is there a level of too much puerile?
To bring it down to...
Right. So looking at Boogie Nights, which is full of puerile content, but it's also essential.
I don't know. Would you consider that puerile content in Boogie Nights? Because I don't consider the backstory of porn being necessarily puerile.
It's not puerile like potty jokes, but there's like I said,
the lowbrow element of it.
The lowbrow element of porn, of rubber dongs, of exploitation of women. Those things are in there enough.
But that storyline behind Boogie Nights is what drives it beyond that.
But the storyline needs it.
It needs it. Oh no, it has to. It's part of the story. Exactly.
Does the amount of puerile content, like minute by minute, not matter? It's solely why the puerile content was in there.
If it serves a real purpose or not.
Right. So we know Fargo season 3, it absolutely needed it.
Yeah.
But then we talk about, so here's a place where I don't think it was needed.
Okay.
Glengarry Glen Ross, which is regarded as one of the best screenplays just ever written.
Agreed. Yeah.
Right. There's the one main speech or the dialogue with Al Pacino where he's talking to the guy in the diner. And he's going off about, he said, "Do you ever take a dump that made you feel like you slept for 6 days, or all train cars smell like shit?" And he talks about, amazing orgasms and all these. So it's a very puerile conversation, right? And I believe it's showing us this is how he finds a stranger, relates to them on some degree, and then brings them in for the kill.
Because he's going down to a certain level that we all, as guys especially, we all get down to it at time to time,
Right.
and he brings it in that way.
But that's not the speech people remember.
No, they remember the Alec Baldwin speech.
Right, which wasn't even in the original play.
Right.
But I think Glengarry Glen Ross would have been just as amazing movie without that one dialogue. Or if the dialogue was in there, but the subject matter was something else.
So I got one for you that you're not going to like.
Yeah. Okay,
this goes back to Blazing Saddles. Blazing Saddles still would have been a great movie without the fireside fart scene.
It would still been
an outstanding movie.
Right.
Does it need it?
Mel Brooks knew exactly what he was doing with pacing. And he lays this bomb down with this racist talk. And you're kind of like, whoa, what movie am I watching here? Then you get this fart scene and you're like, okay, right? Like it's funny. Now, it could have been not farts. It could have been another musical number or something, right? So I will concede that it didn't have to be farts. But that fart scene was important for giving the audience a little bit of a break to know, hey, we're not preaching at you. We're not saying that
this is going to be funny.
This is funny. And because of all those things, then you get to the ending, which is just chaos. But I think you're more allowing of that chaos because we've had
silliness,
racism talk, and yeah.
Okay. I see the scene as important because it gives the audience. Funny to say it this way. It gives the audience a chance to breathe.
Yes. Right. I'd say
okay, yeah,
enough.
That's good.
But that's what it is. It's like with pacing, like we edit videos all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
And when we're cutting interviews together or cutting these videos together, sometimes we need to give a little space between what one person is saying and another. We need
people to kind of recover, and
we have to give the audience a chance to breathe, to be like, okay, that's a lot of heavy stuff, but let's take a break and then come back to it. So I think it's totally necessary.
But the thing I always go back to is if you took the fart scene out, I'd be angry. I want that in there.
Well, you would be angry now, but if you didn't know it ever existed, it wouldn't matter.
Yeah, that's a good point.
To your point, the pacing would have been off, and the audience.
You're right.
I think even if it was a song, I don't think a song would have worked.
No,
you needed that completely removed from the situation.
No, you're right.
Breathing room, because it's like, what does everybody always see when they think of cowboys and campfires? Beans.
Right.
What does everybody think when you're like, oh, if all you eat are beans all day,
the whole night,
what are you doing?
Right,
and so it's that acknowledgement of, all right, we're just going to take a break. poke a little fun at what we all imagine a campfire would be when everybody's just eating beans because it's all cowboys, and then we get back into it.
Right.
So is there a movie that mishandled the puerile? Either had too much or it was... I don't know if I can come up with a movie that exists that doesn't have enough. Right? Like, I think I'd have a hard time arguing that.
Are you saying is there a movie that actually took it to the point where it didn't take it to that next level where it becomes a cinema or something along those lines? I mean, I don't know. Something About Mary. I mean,
that was definitely...
I mean, it had so much, it didn't go to that next level. But then again, it's just a movie. Right. It's something you leave feeling,
And some movies, it's absolutely required. Okay, so are there movies where you could just pull it out and be fine? How about that? So like, I feel like Glengarry Glen Ross, that conversation that shows Al Pacino going in for the kill could have been other things.
True.
It could have been baseball. He could have just been a master about talking to
a baseball fan about baseball stats.
Or like finding out what sport he likes and then what team he likes and then going in for the kill.
Right.
But he comes in with this, talk and orgasms. And so it works and it's great. And I'm glad that it's there. But I think it could have been something else that wasn't puerile and not impacted the movie. Whereas you can't pull out the fart scene in Blazing Saddles and make it the same. It would have been different.
Right.
Better, worse, we don't know. But it would not have been the same.
Okay.
All right. So let's bring this all back together.
Okay.
And let's talk about award ceremonies. The BAFTA, the Golden Globes,
Razzies.
and the Razzies, and the Oscars.
Okay.
Are those a good indicator of good quality cinema?
I think it's a start, but we know that the Academy makes mistakes, right?
I can name a dozen movies. I can name a number of movies that the Academy has nominated or what they've won awards. At least we're talking the Oscars that I think are very undeserving. So yes,
and it's a joke how political the Academy is. Like that's a joke. Non-Hollywood people will tell you, I'm aware that the Academy is political. I don't think anybody, and this is never going to stop. I don't think people should ever make a movie to win an Oscar.
No.
Right? You're going to hurt your art so much. You can only hope that when you toss it out there that you nailed it time-wise and it resonated with the right people and gets noticed.
I do not think that the awards and the award shows are good indicators, with an asterisk.
Okay, I can't wait to hear this. What's the asterisk?
The past handful of years, we've had some independent production houses start to creep in more with nominations, whether it's just sound editing,
A24, yeah,
or maybe some costumes here or there. But now they're getting Best Picture. Look at Parasite, right? Things like that. So I think that as a whole, it's not a good indicator. But when independent movies or smaller movies are able to kind of sneak in,
right,
it helps shine a spotlight, which then makes production houses go, oh, maybe we should start to look at a couple of these productions for the future.
So if awards aren't an indicator of a good movie or not on a level, what is the purpose? Other than, so we know the purpose is pat yourself on the back, right? Self-congratulatory atmosphere, and these egos need this. What is the importance or the inclusion of award discussions in your experience for you?
For me, I like the idea of looking at what comes about and be like, good, I'm glad that such and such was able to break through the fold, break through the noise to get some attention, even though it was released on a limited release.
Right.
It wasn't the summer blockbuster. It wasn't a movie where everybody's like, oh, this is going to be an Oscar winner because Peter Jackson did it.
Right.
Or because it's part of a certain franchise or something like that. And the people that you usually see getting all the awards and getting the attention are going, you know what, this was good, but don't forget to check this out as well.
Right.
So I think winning the award doesn't really mean anything. It's not a good indicator, but
it's an honor to be nominated.
As cliche as that is, I know it sounds terrible.
That's another joke.
But it is. But at least it's who heard of Parasite before it was nominated? Not the general audience.
No.
Not the general
So it's
populace.
foreign.
Because it was foreign and things like that. So
yeah.
I think as a whole, it's not a good indicator, but I think it does allow for some breakthroughs to come through.
That's true. Yeah. I'll give you
Okay.
that.
I used to love everything about the Oscars.
Oh, yeah.
I used to tune in when they would announce the nominees.
Yes.
And get into arguments with people about, I can't believe this was disregarded or this one got snubbed or whatever.
I would make sure that I saw all the movies.
Right.
My family was big on this. We would create a spread, like not a spreadsheet, but a checkbox. Like, we watch these. Here's what we think is going to win. We would compare. It was our Final Four. It was our Super Bowl.
But for me now, I find myself not caring nearly as much.
Right.
I do like to keep an eye and say, oh, I didn't heard of this movie. Is that something I should check out? Or if I hear something that I loved, like an A24 piece, and it got Academy recognition, I'm like, hey, good for you guys. But I find the number one thing I use it for now is almost a validator. If I'm trying to say this movie was blah, blah, and and it won 2 Oscars for Christ's sake. Like I do see it as I have a very hard time. I know I've got a niche taste on a lot of things, right? On movies that I like,
you definitely do.
that I like.
Yeah.
And so there are times where I understand what I'm talking about is very niche, and I don't expect everybody to have heard of it or to have a good opinion of it. But then there's other times where I'm talking about something that is mainstream, and it drives me absolutely bonkers when I've entered the arena of talking about something mainstream, and then somebody else is like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Fargo won, right? But prior to it winning, people, like I'd say, did you see Fargo is the greatest? And again, I wanted to educate people. I wanted people to go see Fargo. And so I talked about it all the time.
Well,
and nobody knew what I was talking about.
Well, and I will say that a movie being nominated for an Oscar will get more people in the seats to watch and view things.
And so
that's,
after the Oscars came out and it won, and somebody still said they didn't know what I was talking about, I'm like, it won an Oscar. Like, I feel like I've done my job. I should be on the same page as you now. Why am I not?
Lighthouse was nominated for cinematography.
Yes, it was.
And I was looking at what it was up against when it was nominated, and what won instead of it.
So The Lighthouse did win for cinematography.
No.
It did not.
No, it was nominated for cinematography.
I wonder who won.
1917.
And
So
there's a
Roger
reason.
Deakins.
And there's a Deakins that won it because instead of being the square format, black and white, beautiful, shots, it is we're traveling. We got one continuous shot and we're editing it to make it look like. I will say that 1917 makes it a lot more immersive where you are part of the action.
Right. But is that cinematography better than Lighthouse?
You know what? To me, no. No. I feel like the cinematography in Lighthouse is better because of the square format, the composition within the frames,
the lighting, everything.
Exactly. Yeah.
So the other ones,
The House.
the other ones that were nominated that year,
Okay.
The Irishman, Joker, and Once Upon a Time
in Hollywood, which did have incredible cinematography.
It did.
But here's what I'm going to say about Lighthouse, and I know you guys aren't going to dig this.
No, we're not.
1917 had constraints in that it had to be about an actual time period. So maybe the story was a little fictionalized for that individual, but you had to stick to this is what the war-torn atmosphere looked like. And then the other constraint was we want you to feel immersed. Mm-hmm. What rules do we have to follow we don't do drone shots, right?
I think Lighthouse was the same way.
No, Lighthouse, the cinematography was whatever he wanted.
Oh,
he wasn't stuck to.
On.
He didn't have the constraints of a real world event or this. So, but he did what he wanted to do, and he did it great. But he didn't have a confines to stick in. So of course it's great. Like if you said, Andy, make a movie about whatever you want, budget's no issue, and it doesn't matter what people think, I think that's gonna be a great movie, right? It's harder to say, Andy, make me a movie that's about this, right? And it has to stay under budget, and I have to approve it, like some producer guy. That's harder.
I think Edgar's was working under that. That's for a different topic.
Different topic. Yeah.
But future podcast.
But what I'm saying is that like all of these were really great. Like the cinematography in Joker was incredible.
Yeah.
So Lighthouse was nominated. It broke through the noise that Once Upon a Time was a big. Like everybody knew about that.
Right.
Everybody knew about Joker. Everybody knew about Irishman. Everybody knew about 1917. Not everybody knew about The Lighthouse. So this is an example of it breaking through. And that's where I think award shows are, to your credit, are relevant in that I could sit there and tell you didn't like it, but it was recognized as I think our general consensus is they're interesting. It's nice to see certain things break through. Nice to give a little.
It gives a little shout
to
it gives,
our insistence upon certain
stuff.
films.
It gives a little shout out also to things that, hey, I hadn't seen this. Maybe I should actually watch this just to see what it's about. It kind of opens your scope a little bit.
Final thought I had was they snub. They are political. It's hurt the integrity of it, but it's a good litmus test. It's a good indicator of what's out there. One last thing about the awards. I really like that it pits movies from this year, because we're talking about movies from all over the place, right? And we're having a hard time saying this movie's better than that movie. But if you limit it to the year that it occurred,
right,
that's a great constraint.
Lightning round.
Lightning round.
We're going to do 2 questions on the lightning round. All right.
Okay.
We're going to do one that we kind of are ready for ish.
And then we're going to do Andy's.
Although I know the question, I haven't thought about it, but we're going to start off with Andy.
I want to drop a bomb that you because Paul did it earlier where he said, name a cinema piece right now. And I was like,
okay, so
answers to reflect, my intelligence. So I don't want to pick this. I don't want to pick that. So I kind of
whatever.
I want to put you guys on the spot.
Okay.
I think that would be funnier.
Okay.
Whereas the other question, yes, have some thought. That'd be great.
Okay.
So here's my question on the spot. You got to answer.
Okay.
What's the number one trailer letdown? You saw the movie, the trailer blew you away.
I got the answer for this.
Yeah. See, and I thought
Sucker Punch by Zack Snyder.
Okay.
I looked at the trailer. I was like, this is going to be fantastic. And then I watched the movie. I'm like, what the?
I liked Sucker Punch.
Okay.
I liked Sucker Punch.
I did not. I thought
it didn't let me down.
the trailer. I thought the trailer was so much more than what the actual movie was that I was let down. That's just me.
I think one of the reasons why I really like Sucker Punch is because it didn't have a Hollywood ending.
Oh yeah, that's okay. I'll give you
it. You're like, all right, they're gonna do it. They're gonna win, and then nope. And you're left going, damn. I like that. Let's see, a trailer that has let me down. Like, let me down to what level? Like where
so the trailer
I watched the movie,
awesome, and then you're like mad at the trailer. You walk out of the movie going,
that trailer led me astray.
Trailer led me astray.
Yeah.
Oh, there is a movie. I remember. I don't remember what the movie is. I think I've just kind of totally blanked it out of my head. But there is a movie I remember trailer we watched. We're like, all right, this would be great. And then we watch it and we're like, this had nothing. But I don't remember what it was.
All right.
And it's been, God, this is probably about a decade or so ago.
So
in a future episode.
And I'm old.
In a future episode.
Well, follow up. I'll remember what it is and I'll stick it on the subreddit.
Okay.
So,
real quickly, your trailer that in the movie led you down?
Matrix 2.
Oh,
yes. When that movie came out, high-speed internet was relatively new.
And you waited.
And you could have, I remember being at the office and there were certain people that I would only talk to like in meetings I had to. I would stop every single person that walked by my office. Be like, yo, did you see the Matrix 2 trailer yet? I have it loaded. I had a tab on my computer for 3 weeks of the Matrix 2 trailer. And I would stop every single person like, you have to see this trailer. And people would watch it. Number one thing they'd say, play it one more time.
Yeah.
Because I remember with the network, it would take a half hour to load up a trailer. I watched the Matrix 2 trailer no less than 100 times in a week because I was constantly showing people. And everything about it was like, oh my God, the Matrix was amazing. This is going to take me to a next level. And I walked out of Matrix going, that sucked. But then I soothed myself and said, no. I only saw half the movie. I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt, wait another year and a half for Matrix
and watch
3.
Revolutions.
I'm sure everything will be fine.
Yeah.
So when I walked out of Matrix 3, I was like, God damn it, twice. Like I was double pissed.
So I got another one for you.
All right.
The Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
I saw the trailer for The Phantom Menace and I was so unbelievably excited.
Yeah.
Unbelievably excited.
So,
And then I went to see the movie and I was kind of excited. Now I'm rewatching it. I'm like, oh.
So there is a trailer that I can think of that while I love the movie,
right,
there are elements in the trailer or there was a feel in the trailer
that didn't exist.
Rogue One.
Yeah. There's no stormtroopers knee deep in water in the movie.
Well, there's that, or when she's
face
limping,
to face with a TIE fighter.
when she's limping down that catwalk and the TIE fighter comes up and you just get this overwhelming sense of dread.
Right, because how do you get out of that?
You can't get out of that. There's all of these elements that were in the trailer, like this is going to be amazing, and they weren't there. Now that said, I love Rogue One. It was amazing. It didn't need those elements, but when some of those scenes popped up, like when she's limping across the catwalk, I'm like, oh, this is where the TIE fighter is going to come up.
Right.
And there was no TIE fighter. I was like,
oh. So the trailer was definitely a disservice.
It was a disservice, but I didn't end up walking out of the theater going, well, that movie was
right. Yeah. Where it was Matrix, I was sour.
Yeah.
So let's look at one other question.
Sure. Go for it.
We've got some travel coming up.
We do have some travel coming up.
So 3-hour flight. What movie are you downloading to watch on the flight?
50 Shades of Grey. Like this against the window.
Right. Yeah, so I'll tell you what I'm not watching is you guys told me to watch Her with Joaquin Phoenix, right?
I haven't seen Her.
I haven't seen Her.
No.
You've never seen Her?
It wasn't us.
No, it wasn't us.
Somebody's like, dude, you've got to watch Her.
I've heard that Her is actually a good
It's
movie.
really good.
I have heard it's good.
It's really good. But in the movie, Joaquin Phoenix enjoys watching pregnancy porn. And so in the movie, there's a scene of a pregnant lady masturbating. So I'm on a plane. Oh, it was on the airplane menu, right?
Oh,
They probably edited that out.
No, not.
Oh, wow.
I punched.
According to the 8-year-old behind him.
Yeah,
he did
no,
not.
there was a 12-year-old across the aisle, back 2 rows.
Wow.
So I went through because I didn't have an iPad. I didn't have portable DVD player at the time. So I was punching in. I was like, oh, Her. People have told me I should watch Her. I'm not going anywhere. Let me watch Her. So I punch in Her, and I was like, this is pretty good. But it gets to this scene of a naked pregnant lady masturbating, and I was like, if it was like. There are other things that would have been naked that I think would not have been nearly as objectionable. But the fact that I had a naked pregnant lady masturbating on my screen, I was like, what the hell, man? I'm on an airplane.
I think that's one of the big problems with trying to pick out a movie. Sometimes what I do is I pick up something familiar that I know because I don't think people are around. Like what I've done, I've had a couple of long plane rides to Rome and what have you.
Oh, yes.
And I defaulted, and I defaulted to the Dungeons and Dragons Honor Amongst Thieves because it's fun, it's fluffy, it's enjoyable, it's kind of mindless, and I enjoy it. But anything controversial, like I joked around about 50 Shades of Grey, but I keep on thinking about what if somebody in back of me is looking through the cracks and watching me watch
and they're judging
pregnancy porn.
So what is your legit, you've got a 3-hour flight you're going to watch? What's your...
Literally, Dungeons and Dragons Honor Amongst Thieves. I've actually...
I got you.
I will go back to that.
I'll
go back to like one of the Star Wars or something like that. Yeah. So
the movie that lives in my ready to go is Born Identity. I can I could watch Born Identity.
Once again, you go back to it, it's safe, you know what it is.
And if when I get home, if Oscar said, hey, Dad, let's watch Born Identity, I wouldn't be like, oh, I just watched it yesterday on the plane. I'm like, yep, we're doing it. But here's the other reason why it's my airplane pick. It's because in the entire movie, he's running through airports and train stations and evading people as he's traveling, right? And so I kind of like...
You get into it.
Because I'm looking at, flight attendants and the captain and the security guys. It's kind of fun that I'm in... So I'm in a tube traveling. I liked indulging in a movie about a guy on the run.
You see yourself in that position.
Old traveler. Yes, it's fun. It's a fun. That's why Born Identity is one of my top plane movie choices because of that indulging in the.
What about you, Mr.
So being on a plane means I can watch whatever I want to watch because if I'm at home and there's a bunch of styles of movies that I want to watch that the person that I'm watching a movie with probably doesn't want to, whether that's really bad, poorly produced, horribly acted, cheesy dialogued horror movies.
Greasy Strangler.
Like Greasy Strangler. It's not cinema. So this is my chance to discover foreign, very art housey, what the hell are you watching type of thing.
So what happens? Do you have the iPad out and as soon as something objectionable comes out, you immediately angle in?
Yeah.
Because I know that you like to sit by the window, so you have that option.
I do. And what I do is I close the window so that I don't get the reflection.
Right. So here's the thing.
Yeah.
If you are in...
So what I also do though, is when I'm picking out a movie, I look to see what the ratings are. And if it says... strong graphics. Then I'm like, well, I'll download it and maybe watch it at the hotel, but not on the plane.
So real quick question, just real quick. If you're in a middle or end seat, do you alter your movie choice?
Oh yeah.
Okay, just
Definitely.
okay.
Because I don't have a way to hide it.
Right. I've definitely picked a movie.
I actually have gotten a privacy screen.
Oh.
But then I left it on a plane.
with the snake.
So now I don't have the privacy screen. So now I just wait until I
Gotcha.
for any questionably ones. Yours is Dungeons and Dragons.
Lately, it's been Honor Amongst Thieves because it's just brainless fun. It's enjoyable.
Fun movie.
It's a fun
it is a
movie.
fun
It's a really fun movie. Yours is
Born Identity.
and mine is just finding something new with zero experience on.
Yeah.
Right.
Cool. All right. So now we got to figure out how to end this.
So that's our show. Don't let the conversation end. Join us in our comments section. We've got a subreddit. We've got YouTube comments. We've got Facebook. Join in. Tell us, what is your criteria for a movie being cinema or just a flick? What are some things that we said that you think we got completely wrong? Do certain movies have too much potty humor or not enough? Are they essential? What's your favorite puerile moment in a movie? We'd love to hear all these things. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe so we can keep bringing these things to you. And be kind, rewind.
Actually, I like that.
All right. Yeah,
That was good.
It works.
That worked.